Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Corner Office on this Monday. I don't think I've been this excited in a really long time to watch sports.
This is our favorite episode to record every year. It's kind of we make wrong predictions all the time. We're the first people to say it. Last year, we were horrible. Mm-hmm. The year before, we were somehow worse. Somehow worse. And it was like our third episode ever, so we gained a reputation of being horrible at knowing what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But this is typically our favorite episode to record of the year, so I'm fired up to get into this.
Yeah, we got March Madness coming up Thursday and Friday. Anybody who's like in school, either in high school, in college, whatever it is, during these 2 days, like you're just not paying attention to your schoolwork at all. You're sneaking time on your phone. You're watching on the March Madness app. They give you 2 free hours because they know that people are in class and they just want you on that thing all day long. It's the best thing ever. I love March Madness. I'm so excited that we're back to this point. And the first, there isn't a better feeling in basketball than the first 2 days of March Madness because it's literally 4 games on at a time, all time. And man, do we have an insane slate this year, and I'm super excited to run through it.
It's my favorite brand of overstimulation. And Mom and Dad, I know you're both listening to this. I am still going to make this point. I, unfortunately, don't have classes during the March Madness period on Thursday or Friday, and I'm a little bummed out about it.
Yeah, I can't wait to sit on my couch for 14 hours and watch basketball today.
Last year I had a midterm on the first day. It started during the first game, and it was going during all 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the second I got out of that midterm, I literally ran home to go turn my TV.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how it is. It's literally the best time of the year. And I mean, I love talking about this. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to have a perfect bracket. And then just everything just, hits the fan in 2 seconds when some upset that no one has goes to the Sweet 16 or something like that. And, it's a special time of year. I'm super excited.
Yeah. And say what you will about the NIL period. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people have some form of backlash when it comes to transfer portal and NIL money.
Yep.
All it's done is thrown chalk out the window.
Yeah.
The seeds are just numbers. And if anything could happen before, as we saw last year, really anything can happen now.
I agree. So I think we're going to pull up a bracket here and just kind of run you guys through some of our initial picks, takes, and some of these upsets that we're going to be watching out for. As well as talking about the first 4, which starts tomorrow. Oh my God, it starts tomorrow.
And there's great games in the first. I can't remember the last time I was this excited to watch the first 4.
I know. So let's start there if we can. Jack, you want to pull the bracket up?
Yeah. So as we do every year that we are on video, we're going to have a bracket up. We're going to fill out a bracket on the show. If you guys want to tail us, which again, I think is a good move. I would not do that. Feel free to do so. Do not get upset at us if our picks do not hit. I want to make that very clear. Because every year, people listen to the episode and they're like, dude, you told me that Kentucky was going to go all the way, and then they lose to Oakland in the first round. No one saw that coming. So don't get upset at us, as a disclaimer.
Yep. All right.
All right, so you should be able to see my screen now?
Let me make sure. Yep.
Sweet.
Good.
So, should we start in the South bracket?
We should start in the South. The South, for me, is probably the second best bracket, in my opinion, aside from, I think, the West. Is it?
I think it's the Southwest. No, it is the West. It's the West.
The West is the one that's the absolute dogfight. So, obviously, we're going to be talking the South to start. You got the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, that being Auburn. They get to play who? St. Francis University or...
Which, by the way, Auburn being number 1 was kind of shocking going into this tournament.
I agree.
They did not win their SEC, and Duke did. And obviously, this is biased. This is bias coming from me. Duke won their tournament and was number 1 going into the tournament. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why they're not number 1 now.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think that the Cooper Flag injury has something to do with that. The fact that they haven't really released any information surrounding that either is kind of a bit concerning to people like me who would want to take Duke to go deep into the tournament this year. You're just not sure if he's going to be playing. You know what I mean? Which is a problem, right? Because without him, you're relying heavily on Colin Kneppel and some other guys who have played really well and stepped up in the ACC tournament. But I don't think this team is a national championship contender without the guy who leads them in literally every statistical category.
Yeah, and they're so much easier to... Don't get me wrong, they're still a great team without Cooper Flag.
Yeah.
But they're so much easier to game plan for.
Agreed. Agreed, because you don't have that free.
If you take Khan out of the game, then they really don't have a number one scorer. You're relying on guys who are just kind of there to fill a role, which they've done so well this whole year.
That being
let's start in the South.
Yeah, and I also think it should be noted that last year was one of the first times that we saw the number 1 and number 2 overall seeds in the country in the finals, and that was Purdue and UConn. So I do think that people are kind of tending to have Duke and Auburn in their finals, and I just don't really see that happening this year. But we can start by slotting Auburn by whoever they're going to play in the first round. I usually like to take teams that lost really early last year, and Auburn was one of them. They lost in the first round to Yale last year. If you look a year before that, you had Purdue go to the national championship. A few years before that, you had Virginia go to win the national championship. You know, some of these teams that get upsetted by low seeds, they kind of bounce back well, in my opinion, because you have that pressure to perform. So that is something that's in the back of my head, but Auburn's going to win this game.
I agree. If we move to the next game, this is the first one. When they were on the show, they mentioned this game, and everyone across the country was like, I can't wait to watch this one. And I couldn't agree more. If you look at Louisville, I think 8 is kind of a sin.
I agree.
For them to be that low. They just went to the final of the ACC tournament. And if you have Clemson as a 5, there's no way that Louisville should be an 8. They're a very dangerous team. But Creighton's also incredibly well coached, and they could go very far in this tournament if they get through these two teams. I personally like Louisville here, and I could see them going on a run down the stretch, but we'll get there in a bit.
This is unfortunately a game that I really don't like. You know what I mean? Because both of these teams I love. I think that both of these teams are underseeded, and I think that since you put 14 teams from the SEC in here, somebody should be playing in this. But I get that I don't think with the conference schedules that they can play Auburn in the second round, something like that. But to me, Creighton at 9 is underseeded, and Louisville at 8 is underseeded. And unfortunately, one of these two teams has to go home. And I really do like both of them. That being said, I think that the X factors in this game are going to be Chucky Hepburn or Ryan Kalkbrenner. Creighton has been my team for the past couple of years, and I really have a hard time picking against them, especially in a guy like Pat Kelsey's first year at Louisville. But man, have they built something special.
I will say Creighton in the Big East tournament, Ryan Kalkbrenner had 0 points on 0 of 8 shooting. So
they had to play 4 games in a row. It's the same with Tanji for Wisconsin. Like he was 1 for 15 in the Big Ten tournament final. But when you have to play that many games back to back to back to back because you're not a higher enough seed, like that's what happens when you're a 7-footer.
Well, I mean, I guess that's true, but Louisville did the same thing and played very well throughout it. I think that for both of these teams, they now started as a low seed in their conference tournaments and had to play a bunch of games. They're both very well fit, which is something that a lot of these teams aren't if they've been waiting or sitting or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I'm not gonna take a team here. You say that you like Louisville. I'll ride you with that. We have some upsets coming up, but this is a game to watch because I do think that if Creighton wins this one, Auburn's going to have a hell of a matchup trying to stop Janai Broome versus Ryan Kalkbrenner in the second round.
I agree, and that would be fun to watch. But I also think that either of these teams could give Auburn a serious game in the second round.
Okay. Let's move down to one that I think is super on upset watch right now. You have the University of Michigan versus UC San Diego.
This one's super fun because UC San Diego is in their first year of eligibility and made the tournament. Yep. Not only that, but 12-5 is normally the numbers that we tend to look at for upsets.
Yep.
And Michigan just came off 2 really big wins in the Big Ten tournament, winning against Wisconsin and who'd they play before that?
They beat...
It was Maryland. They played a great Maryland team, and then they beat a very good Wisconsin team.
Yeah, both close games. Both, I think, 1-possession games until the end of the Wisconsin game, but yeah.
Yes, Michigan knows how to win down the stretch, and they're very well coached. Dusty May is a great coach, and he has tournament experience coaching that FAU team from 2 years ago.
Yep.
However, this UC San Diego team is dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game that I would watch, but to be honest with you, I don't think that UC San Diego is going to beat Michigan. I think that a lot of people are going to be all over this game is one of the ones that, because 12-5 is the one that most people really like. But I think the 2 7-footers is going to be, and for me, like, I love when teams have size in college basketball. I just think it's something really hard to deal with. especially when you have a guy like Danny Wolf and a guy like Vlad Golden on your roster. I just don't think UC San Diego is going to have the firepower to beat that team. That being said, they're 30-3. You know what I mean? Like, they are an absolute powerhouse, but when it comes to pedigree, I just think Michigan has more experience in the tournament.
It's also hard to stop 7-footers.
Yep.
I mean, especially when they can step out and shoot and like put the ball on the floor and get down the lane. Danny Wolf, I believe, is like, that's his name, right? Danny Wolf.
Yeah, Danny Wolf. Yeah,
Danny Wolf. He's a very dynamic player who can take over a game, and obviously Vlad Golden shows signs of being one of those 7-footers that are just great in college basketball. So I'm with you. I think Michigan wins this.
Okay.
Moving to the next one, Yale versus Texas A&M. This is another one that a lot of people have their eyes on because Yale, as you mentioned earlier, upset Auburn and is bringing back their top 3 scorers from last year.
Yep. Aside from Danny Wolf, who was on the CL team last year.
Right.
Look, they're very good defensively. They're staunch. They won a game last year, and for that reason, I'm taking A&M here. I don't think they'll have an answer for Wade Taylor. It's very rare that you see a team like an Ivy League school, aside from Princeton maybe a few years ago, win a game in the tournament and then be able to do it the next year. I just don't think that they're going to have enough.
All right, so moving on to the next game. This is where the first 4 really starts to become a factor.
Yep.
SDSU versus UNC, to me, seems like the biggest game in this first 4 kind of tournament to get in.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that either of these teams beat Ole Miss.
I agree.
I think UNC will win and handle Ole Miss very easily.
Yeah, I agree. I think that UNC wins this game, and I could see them winning a few games, actually. I think they're really dangerous. The fact that they got into the tournament at 1-12, quad 1 wins, you could argue was a really big mistake. I think that's true, but I don't think any team wants to see North Carolina in the tournament.
Absolutely. And they're also one of those teams, as much as I hate to admit it, where it's not like the tournament doesn't feel the same when they're not in it.
I agree.
Moving on to this next game, I think this one's pretty easy. Iowa State got off to a huge hot start at the beginning of the year, have cooled down as of late.
Yep.
But I still think they handle Lipscomb.
I agree.
Marquette versus the Lobos is another game that will be fun to watch. I just don't know that much about these two teams.
Yeah, I mean, I would go chalk here. I think Marquette probably wins this round. Cam Jones is definitely the best player on the court here.
Definitely. And Shaka Smart's one of the best coaches in the country. So.
And New Mexico's kind of been disappointing in the tournament for the past couple of years, so I don't feel really strong picking them this year.
I think Michigan State is one of the more dangerous teams kind of in this tournament that people aren't really talking about. I mean,
Izzo's always super dangerous in March too. Like, this is not a team that you want to bet against, so I'm definitely taking Michigan State there.
Absolutely. Should we move over to the Eastern side now?
Yeah.
All right. I think Duke handles whatever team they play in the first round, whether it be
American or whoever.
Right, whoever. It just doesn't really matter. This Duke team's great, and they will kill whoever they play in the first round. I think if you look at this next game, Mississippi State Baylor, I certainly want Baylor to win this game because I want to see Jeremy Roach go against his old Duke team.
Yep.
But I think that it's a great first round game.
I agree. I think that this is where you start to see the fall off of the SEC, which normally comes in the tournament. They have so many teams in there this year, but very few of them ever make it that far. I think Baylor with VJ Edgecombe, Normad Ochier, Omir, whatever it is. And Jeremy Roach is going to be, enough to get by this Mississippi State team. I like Baylor here.
And that is a team that has guys that have been in the tournament and had gone far.
Norchad Omir, I think, is what it is. I don't know why I said it wrong. All
right. Oregon Liberty, I think that whoever wins this game loses in the next round regardless to either Akron or Arizona.
Yep.
To be honest, it's kind of a toss-up. I think that Liberty, they're fine. I think that Oregon will handle them here.
Yeah, Liberty is like the gritty white guys. Which is cool, they play really good defense.
They have a curfew, so
yeah, I don't see them winning this game. This next game though, man, is this interesting.
Super
Arizona
fun.
Versus Akron, two of the hottest teams in the country. I really want to say take Akron here. I don't love Arizona in the tournament any year. They've always kind of been disappointing to me. I think a 4 seed is really high for them too. Based off of the season that they just had, even though they went on a bit of a run in the tournament there. And Akron is red hot. red hot. So this is a game that I would circle on your calendars if you could, to make sure that you're watching when Arizona takes on the Zips.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, Akron is, I think, unanimously agreed upon the hottest team in the country right now.
Yeah.
Even though they do come from a smaller conference. Arizona just went to the final in the Big 12 tournament and lost to Houston, which was a good game, and they played them hard. But also, I think that Big 12 is kind of one of the weaker conferences in basketball this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to actually follow whatever you say here.
I think the fun pick is Akron, so that's what I'm going to go with.
Let's go with Akron.
Okay.
These next couple games, BYU VCU is a fun one if you like basketball.
Yep.
VCU played well in their A10 conference or in their A10 final, but actually let Loyola Chicago back into that game more than they should have. And BYU is a very well coached team in his first year coaching.
I think the reason that I want BYU here over VCU is because of the way that they played Iowa State this year. VCU is a team that relies heavily on the defensive side of the ball, and the fact of the matter is that BYU has been able to impose their will on staunch defenses for the entirety of this year. I think they're a dangerous team, and I think that they may potentially go 2 rounds here, so I'm going to take BYU here over VCU.
Yeah, they're one of the highest scoring teams in the country, so if you let them get hot, you will not be able to keep up. I think chalk with Wisconsin over Montana. Montana hasn't really impressed me. I don't really know too much about them, but I know that Wisconsin plays good basketball.
Yeah, Montana was a bid stealer out of the SoCon. I don't really think that they're super dangerous, so I would also take Wisconsin here.
St. Mary's versus Vanderbilt to me is a fun game because Vanderbilt's one of those SEC teams where it's like, how good would they be if they weren't playing against SEC competition the entire season?
Right.
But St. Mary's has been incredibly good all year. I kind of like them to go a couple rounds deep here, and I would take them over Vanderbilt.
You like St. Mary's here over Vanderbilt?
I like St. Mary's.
I don't necessarily disagree. I think St. Mary's is one of those teams that's made in a lab to beat Gonzaga every year. And can they be able to replicate that is the question here. I do think that St. Mary's will get it done against a Vandy team that has been proven to beat some good SEC teams, but has some bad losses on its resume. So I'm going to take St. Mary's as well.
Definitely, and I think that we can all agree that Alabama should roll through Robert Morris. But we've talked about this a lot. Alabama's one of those teams that's going to give up 80 points a game, probably pretty minimum against a good team.
Yep.
And if they don't have it that night and they can't score 85 to 90, they're not going to win. So they are a very vulnerable team at this 2 seed, but I think that they get it done over Robert Morris.
I agree.
All right, let's move now to the Western bracket.
This division is an absolute dogfight. It's just a dogfight. I don't know. I'm super excited to see what's going on here. First and foremost, you have Florida versus Norfolk State. We can slide Florida in. They are the hottest team in the country, in my opinion. Just won the SEC tournament. They look really good. Thomas Ha, the way that they've been playing all year round to get to this 1 seed, dangerous team. This is where it gets interesting to me. UConn versus Oklahoma. This is a great first round matchup, and whoever wins this game is going to get Florida in the second round, and I don't think Florida wants to see either of these teams.
Absolutely.
I don't think you can go against the championship pedigree of a Dan Hurley here, and although I don't think UConn is primed to make a really big run here, I do think that they will beat Oklahoma in the first round.
I do too, but they have struggled against non-conference opponents in big games.
Correct, and Jeremiah Fears is a really good player on Oklahoma as a freshman.
Absolutely. Memphis, Colorado State is one that you and I somewhat disagree on. And this is one of the 12-5s that a lot of people are looking at.
Yeah, I agree.
Memphis, obviously, PJ Haggerty, one of the best probably a top 5 player in the country right now.
Mm-hmm.
Will he be enough to beat a Colorado State team that not only does well in the tournament and in their conference, but is very hot right now?
The reason that I think that they will be is twofold. Number one, I think it should be noted that Colorado State is actually favored in this game as the 12 seed right now on books, which I think is kind of crazy. But they have Nick Clifford, who is the best player on the court. He has been the best player all year long. He has been their best player all year long. He's the reason that they won the Mountain West this year. He's going to the NBA draft. And Memphis has been battling with some injury stuff, and I just simply don't trust the pedigree of Penny Hardaway when it comes to coaching this Memphis team this year. That being said, I do think Colorado State wins this game, even though I think everyone in America is on Colorado State to win this game.
I agree. Do you really think that he's a better player than PJ Haggerty on the
I think he's a better prospect than PJ Haggerty.
Okay, that's a different conversation. But we will take the fun pick, and we'll take the Rams to go to the next round.
Sounds good.
Maryland Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon is a March Madness favorite when it comes to upsets. They are always in that 12 to 13 slot. But I think that Maryland is one of my favorite teams going into this tournament. I love Derek Queen. I love a big man who can handle the ball and really do whatever he wants whenever he wants. As a freshman, he was up there in points per game in Big Ten. And this Maryland team, if you follow the trapezoid of excellence, they are very high. They're good both defensively and play offense at a very high rate. I like Maryland to win this game.
Yeah, I agree. I think GCU and Tynan Grant Foster have been a really fun team for the past couple of years. I'm happy for them. I think they won a game last year, if I recall correctly, and they've been one of those teams that have consistently been in the tournament and been really good. But I do think that they had a really tough draw here. I think Maryland has been fantastic, and as much as their depth is a massive issue, it won't be in the first round, and I think they'll get it done.
Let's talk about Missouri Drake. This is one that a lot of people have their eyes on because Missouri's a good team. They're one of those teams that made some noise in the SEC this year. But Drake is 30-3 with their third straight tournament berth. And they have been absolutely dominant against everyone that they've played this year. Personally, I like Drake in this one.
I agree. I think Drake has been the best defense in the country this year, and they've been incredibly well coached in a year where I think they have a new head coach. So, I mean, good for them. I'm happy to see this matchup because I actually do really like Missouri. I like Mark Mitchell. I like a couple of the guys in that squad. But I do think that Drake will get this win.
I like Missouri too. I like Mark Mitchell, but Drake is built on defense and Missouri is not built on offense. And I think that that's what it comes down to.
Okay.
UNC Wilmington, first tournament berth. I think they get rolled by Texas Tech in the first round.
I agree.
Kansas-Arkansas is a really fun game to me because Kansas was the number one preseason team going into this year and had a horrendously disappointing season. And I think that you could make the same case for Arkansas. Obviously, they brought in Cal. It's his first year. He hasn't done well in the tournament for his last 3 or 4 years, and that's why he was effectively fired out of Kentucky.
Right.
They have a very talented roster of guys who have tournament experience, like John L. Davis, who went to the Final Four with FAU, and they're getting Boogie Fland back. But that could be an issue because it messes up their minutes rotation, right? So this is a huge game for me. I think that it's hard to bet against Kansas in the tournament.
I agree.
But I'm okay with either of these teams moving on. I think that it's kind of a coin flip here.
I like Kansas here. I think that Arkansas played better with Boogie Fland off of the court, despite the fact that he probably is their best prospect. I don't know. I find it really hard to go against a team that has the firepower that Kansas does, especially in the tournament, despite the fact that they've had so many problems this year. They're overseeded, first and foremost. This team should not be a 7 over Louisville or Creighton or I haven't made note of it, but UCLA probably shouldn't be, over them. Illinois, there are a bunch of teams out here that I just think kind of got overseeded. Kansas is one of them. But that being said, this will make for a really good stylistic clash. I just think that Kansas will be too much for Arkansas.
Yeah, and I think that they don't really have an answer for Hunter Dickinson.
I agree.
St. John's also up there in the conversation with hottest teams in the country. I don't really think anyone thought that they would make such a deep run in the Big East that they did, obviously winning the tournament and being a 2 seed. I think they roll through Omaha.
I agree. The Red Storm is another one of those teams that is red hot right now, and Rick Pitino has done a fantastic job with them.
And he's not even cheating with them, allegedly.
Well, it's hard to cheat now that you can pay.
Right. So let's move to the final division, the Midwest. I think Houston's a great team. It's their first year in the Big 12, is it not?
Yes.
It's their first year in the Big 12.
In the Big 12.
And they won their first, obviously, as you said, they won the conference in their first year. They're a great team, one that a lot of people really aren't necessarily giving the credit that they deserve, and they're very well coached. I like them to win this game. Gonzaga, Georgia is one that we should circle.
Okay.
I think that this is kind of a mid-off, to be honest. I think that either of these teams loses to Houston, but that means that it's going to be a great first-round game. It's kind of a toss-up.
I like Gonzaga here. I actually think that Gonzaga gives Houston a bit of a game in the second round, but not a crazy game. I just don't think that Georgia has the the pedigree, the experience. Although Asa Newell will be a first-round pick, probably a top 15 guy out of Georgia, and he has brought them back to the tournament. So give me Gonzaga here, but definitely a game that I will be watching.
Definitely. Now, these next two games are the ones that everyone is talking about the upset. Any of these four teams could come out of here, and I truly believe that. McNeese, obviously, is the story of the country right now. Everyone has their eyes on McNeese because of their manager, Amir Khan.
Yeah, singing In and Out.
Which is pretty funny, objectively.
He just got 2 NIL deals. Did you see that?
I saw. Yeah, B-Dubs and Tick Pick.
Yeah, good for him, man.
So, I mean,
way to cash
see random guys out there winning.
Yeah.
I could see any of these teams coming out of here.
I agree. This is a dogfight. I think the loss of Dylan Hunter will be an issue for Clemson, but I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see McNeese State beating Clemson. The way that Clemson team showed up and played against Duke earlier in the season, if that's the form that they're going to be in, I just like them a lot in March. So I'm going to take Clemson here over McNeese. That being said, we have to take a fun pick here. And for me, I think it's High Point over Purdue.
I agree.
I don't think Purdue has been very sound this year. I think that they have some shakiness in the tournament. And I think HPU, again, is another one of those teams that's just fun, plays really good defense. They have a guy who was on SportsCenter doing the mean mug celebration. Like, you know, that stuff that's going to get a bunch of clicks when it comes to the March Madness account. And this might be the white guy team right here. This could be the one where you get your Doug Edder, your Jack Golke, your March legend, whoever it may be. I would have my eye on High Point University.
I would as well, and I think that all of Purdue runs through Big Ten Player of the Year, Braden Smith. Yep. And if they can find a solution for him, then they have a serious chance of winning this game. So, Texas Xavier versus Illinois.
I like either of those teams.
I would agree. Illinois. Both Texas and Xavier are very good teams. Xavier obviously was very good in the Big East this year, which is a very tough division. I think that they're one of those teams where if they play in a different conference, you could be seeing them as a natural tournament berth. And Texas has one of the best freshmen in the country in Trey Johnson. Okay. So I like either of these teams to beat Illinois, to be honest with you. Nothing about them impresses me.
Yeah, I don't really like Illinois this year. I think that both these teams will probably beat them too.
I think that UK goes through Troy. Yeah. Kentucky's a team that I have little to no confidence in.
I agree, but I think they have a pretty easy route here.
Agreed.
So I'm going to take Kentucky here as well, but another team that I feel is way overseeded.
I would agree. These last two games, really don't know all that much about them. I'm going to go ahead and pencil in Tennessee. Wofford's not that good of a team. They play in a bad conference. They just got their tournament berth.
Yep.
UCLA, Utah State, I don't know anything about either of these teams, to be honest. But, I mean, if you talk about the team that plays in the better division, I guess you have to say UCLA.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I know very little about Utah State, so I'm going to take UCLA here as well.
All right, so this gives us our round of 32 games. Let's go back to the... Should we stay in the Midwest while we're here?
Sure, let's stay in the Midwest. Let's work our way back up.
Okay, we'll work our way back. Houston-Gonzaga is a good game. Talk me through that one.
I mean, you obviously have the stylistic clash of Houston, a team that plays with more small ball guards than Gonzaga, who, runs through Graham Ike, Braden Huff, some really big bigs. And then they have, your dynamic guards and Andrew Nembhard, or Ryan Nembhard, right? Andrew Nembhard's on the Pacers.
Ryan Nembhard.
And Noah Hickman. So they have some really solid pieces. I just think that this Houston team is too well coached. I mean, Mark Few does a fantastic job. Let's be very clear. But they have not had the firepower all year this year. And I mean, they've lost some pretty big ranked games in Quad 1. I think that Houston will get it done in the second round here.
Clemson versus High Point's one of those games where we're talking about High Point. If they're going to be that team that we think that they could possibly be, and if they beat Purdue, they're probably going to beat Clemson too and make their way to the Sweet 16. If we're talking fun picks, I'd like to throw High Point out there.
Sure, go for it. I don't hate it. I think that Clemson will, be a good team in this tournament, and I do think that they'll get through McNeese State. But that being said, I mean, a double-digit seed has been in the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8 in every one of the past 10 years. So maybe High Point's the team to do it. That's kind of what we're predicting here. We'll see if that happens.
When we talk about Kentucky, their MO all year has been they beat good teams and they lose to mediocre teams. And it's Mark Pope's first year as the head coach there. And he did what he could with the portal and NIL and whatnot.
Yep.
This game is one of those teams where Texas and Xavier are both mediocre, as is Illinois, and Kentucky could lose to either of these teams if they don't bring their A game. I'm going to make you make the pick here.
I'm going to pencil in Kentucky for another round here. I just think that they're better than I can't bank on Xavier being here because I think Xavier beats them. But if it's Texas, they're 100% going to beat Texas, in my opinion. They beat them twice during the regular season. I think Kentucky has a really easy route here. If they were a lower seed or if they were playing a team that I liked more, they would probably be gone in this round. But I think Kentucky will probably win and go up against Tennessee in the next round.
I agree. So we'll pencil in Tennessee as well. They're a good team. I don't think UCLA will stop them at all. As much as I don't like Rick Barnes and this Tennessee team.
Right.
Moving to the Western Division now. Florida-UConn is a great game. I don't think that anyone is stopping Florida before the Elite Eight right now.
Florida is like my favorite team in the country. So I think that I'm going to pencil them in to win. Even though this conference is the best, like this side of the bracket is the best side of the bracket in all of college basketball right now.
I agree. I am going to lobby hard for Maryland against Colorado State, and I know that we may butt heads here. I think that Maryland will overpower them.
I agree. I think Maryland wins that game.
Okay. Drake, Texas Tech is another one that you kind of look at, where if Drake can get through Missouri, they have a pretty good chance against Texas Tech as well.
Mm-hmm. I think Tech is too good for them. Too much firepower. JT Toppin has been one of the best players in the country. I just don't see them stopping it.
Yes. All right. Do you think Kansas can take down the Red Storm right now?
No, I don't.
Neither do I. We didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
All right, let's move over to the South Division. Or I guess, I'm sorry, we'll go to the East Division. We'll really work our way back. Duke-Baylor's a great game here.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of tournament experience on Baylor. And there's some guys on Duke that are returning for their second and third year now. And obviously, Jeremy Roach at Baylor against Duke for the first time.
Yep.
I still like Duke.
Yeah, I think it depends so heavily on Cooper Flagg's health, but I think that they get to the Sweet 16 even without him.
Oregon-Akron. If Akron can get through Arizona and stay hot, I think they handle Oregon.
I disagree. I think this is one that I'm taking Oregon here. I think they just have Nathan Biddle is the X factor here. He's a 7-footer. I don't see Akron being able to stop that.
You're hard on Oregon?
Yeah.
Pause. Jesus. My God. All right, BYU, Wisconsin. Great game here.
Give me the Mormons, dude.
I agree.
I think BYU could roll here. Could roll.
St. Mary's versus Alabama is one that we talked about the first round. Again, this is a conditional statement. If Alabama does not have their A game, then St. Mary's has a great chance of beating them. If Alabama puts up 85 points, then St. Mary's has no chance.
Right.
It's just which one of those outcomes will happen.
I think Alabama gets another round here. I think that they have, the experience. And I have a really hard time going against Mark Sears.
Mark Sears is a great player. While we're on the topic, this year has been, in my opinion, the year where the transfer portal has been the most noticeable in terms of the best players in the country. Obviously, no one knew who Janai Broom was going into Auburn this year.
Well, 2 years ago.
Right, 2 years ago. And Mark Sears was playing at Ohio, and now he's one of the best players in the country at Alabama, and will probably be like a second-round draft prospect.
I mean, I think you're just seeing like a lot of these mid-major guys who started their careers there and obviously put up fantastic numbers. They play in college for longer than a bunch of these one-and-done guys, and they're the impact players when it comes down to this, right? Like, they're the guys who are winning Player of the Year. They're the guys who are going to be, probably not great NBA players, right? But they're fantastic college players. And sometimes it's not the guy that you recruit who's a 5-star. It's the guy who's been working his ass off playing for Ohio, who's been improving at his craft and is now going to be able to take over the Storm in March here.
Right. Because the best college players are the ones that know the college game, and the best NBA prospects are the ones that are the youngest and the most talented, but don't necessarily have a polished game yet.
Right. I agree.
So Auburn-Louisville. This is a huge game.
Uh-huh. I like Auburn here.
I like Auburn too, but I think that Louisville is a fun upset. I think that a lot of people will be taking Louisville to take Auburn out early.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. I think Auburn wins here. But it is an interesting game to watch.
As is Michigan versus Texas A&M.
Yeah, I have Michigan here. I think if Michigan gets through UC San Diego, they'll go another round. But this is another one that's stylistically interesting because you go against that high-powered, fast-paced Texas A&M offense versus the kind of grounded and slower-paced Michigan.
Yeah, it's kind of front court versus back.
A little bit, yep.
Front court versus back court.
But Trey Donaldson is one of the best defenders in all of college basketball, and that's why I'm going to take Michigan here.
UNC or San Diego State versus Iowa State. If it's UNC, they could seriously get through here.
Mm-hmm.
If it's SDSU, they could probably get through Ole Miss. They probably won't get through Iowa State.
Yeah. I think the fun pick would be to say UNC is going to be here. And in which case I'm taking them. So I think that's fine. I think that's probably the right thing to do here. And we can readjust if we have to later on.
Right. And we are taking all the fun picks.
Yep.
I think Michigan State rolls through Marquette.
I agree.
Okay, so we'll stay here for the South. Sweet 16. About to wrap it up.
Yep.
Auburn, Michigan is another great game. Michigan is the first team that Auburn will play that legitimately has the defense for Johni Broome.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to not at least hover your finger over Michigan here.
I agree. I think Michigan's a fun pick, and you rarely ever see a 4 seeds in the Elite Eight. So let's go with Michigan here. Let's pencil them in.
We'll go with Michigan, but I think that this could be a huge Pettiford game if
I agree.
If they take Johni Broome out of it.
Yep.
It's a big test of character, and he's been there for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
SDSU or UNC versus Michigan State. If we're going to continue this being UNC, this is an awesome game in the Sweet 16. This is a classic March Madness basketball game. UNC, Michigan State. This is kind of a hard game to pick.
I'm going Michigan State here. I think Michigan State, Michigan is, the game that I'm pulling for here. So that's what I'm going to go with.
All right. Let's move over to Duke, Oregon. Again, very contingent on whether Cooper Flagg is playing or not. And I think that this is where it seriously starts to become a factor.
I think Duke wins here. But again, I think that, it's kind of a toss-up. And I don't necessarily disagree with you there.
Let's talk about BYU, Alabama.
Yeah, I think that this is an interesting stylistic matchup. You have two teams that play a lot of high-powered offense. And I think Alabama's better at that. Simple as that. I think they have an easy route to get here, and I think that they probably beat BYU because they play, in the 90s, and Alabama's just that team.
I agree. No one is going to outscore Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how you're going to beat them. All right, let's move to the Midwest here. Houston, High Point, another good game. I think Houston gets through.
Agreed.
Kentucky versus Tennessee.
Tennessee
Classic wins. SEC matchup.
Yeah, Rocky Top.
I will not say that. Kentucky does beat good teams.
Yeah.
But they also lose to mediocre teams, right? So it's which Kentucky are you going to get?
I like Tennessee here.
I think there's too much what if to take Kentucky here. Because, if you look, this is hypothetically the second game in a row that they could lose.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to take a team based off what they could do.
Right.
Let's move to the West. Super chalk so far, 1 through 4 here. I think that both Florida, Maryland, and Texas Tech St. John's are good games. I think the Red Storm beat Texas Tech.
I agree.
Florida, Maryland is a great game. And for me, I like Maryland. I want them to beat Florida, so I would have taken them in my bracket. However, if we're talking about what teams are the best, it's probably Florida.
If you want Maryland, we can do it.
I just like them, but I don't know if they can beat Florida. It's so hard to beat Florida right now. I like
Florida. I think Florida is my favorite team in the country right now. And I just really like them. So
the thing that you can say about Florida that you can't say about a lot of these really good teams is that they're so balanced.
Yeah.
They can score in so many different ways, and they can play good defense throughout.
Everyone's bought in on that team too.
Exactly. If you over game plan for one guy, you are going to get killed by the other guys. They have so many options.
We're 3 rounds in at this point. This is the Sweet 16. Maryland is just, they're exhausted. They have no bench depth. they play 7 guys. You know what I mean? I have a feeling that Florida is going to be a team that's just, continually a nuisance for every team in the country.
Agreed. So we're in the Elite Eight now, and we are so chalk.
We're very chalk.
As chalk as it gets, which is a mistake that we make every single year. But when you talk it out, it's so hard to be like, this 2 seed is going to lose to this team that is on paper significantly worse than them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's stay here in the West.
Okay.
Florida versus St. John's. I think this is where you start to see a difference in conference play.
Okay.
St. John's plays in the Big East. It's not nearly as competitive as the SEC, which brought 14 teams this year.
Mm-hmm.
Florida has played a great schedule, and they have also played great teams back to back to back all season, when you cannot say the same about St. John's.
Yeah.
I think I like Florida.
I agree, and I wanted both these teams in my Final Four, which makes it, super hard. And I think I wanted Maryland there too, to be honest with you.
I definitely wanted Maryland. I actually still want Maryland.
I think Florida's the best team in the country right now, so I'm taking Florida.
Houston, Tennessee. I like Tennessee. I don't think that they can beat Houston.
Okay. For the sake of the fun of it, I'll say I think Tennessee's going to win here. I just think that Houston has perennially not been a super good tournament team, and they battled a lot of injury stuff. But
I would take Tennessee. Fun pick.
Let's take Tennessee.
Let's move over to the South Conference right now. Michigan State. They played great games all year. Obviously, the Michigan players were standing on the Michigan State logo on senior night. There was a huge scuffle. These teams don't like each other, and they especially don't like each other this year.
Mm-hmm. Who do you think?
When you talk about rivalry games like this, all statistical things that you would see on paper completely go out the window. It's who wants it more and who shows up. It's a complete coin toss. I don't know who I like more.
I think I like Michigan State more. It's a way less fun pick than picking Michigan, but I think that this is the team that just has their number.
Okay, so if you're listening, Alex likes Michigan State more. We're going to take Michigan because it's the fun pick.
All right.
Duke, Alabama is a super good game.
Yep.
Especially if Duke has Cooper Flag. And if they don't,
that Alabama's probably that's going to change my entire bracket. If they don't have Cooper Flag, then I'm not taking Duke anywhere near this point. But
so we're saying that Cooper Flag's playing. How effective is he on an ankle sprain?
Yeah.
This is the first time that if he's playing that it's going to be a serious question. And Duke can keep up scoring, but can they keep up with Alabama? No one can.
Let's take Alabama.
Oh, it's killing me. I'm taking Duke in my bracket.
All right.
Both these games are fun. When I was thinking about teams that I had in the Final Four going into this, these are not the 4 that I had.
Nope.
Like, not at all, now that we're talking through it. Like, my bracket looks completely different.
Yeah, and I'm sure mine will too, but this is our official one. I have Florida here. God, and I have Tennessee out of these teams.
I don't know if I have Tennessee here. Tennessee can't score. They can't keep up with Alabama. If Alabama's scoring, they cannot keep up with them.
Florida, Alabama final.
Florida, Alabama final. SEC. All right, let's talk about this final.
It's the year of the...
It's the year of the SEC.
It's the year of the SEC. Oh, man, I hate this so much. Why couldn't all the games be like round 1? Round 1 are the fun ones.
Okay.
I think Florida wins.
I think Florida wins too. Florida's one of the teams that can stop Alabama defensively and keep up with them offensively.
Yeah, I think.
And Florida they did just beat them. I think Florida wins.
Pick.
All right, we got Gators. How many points will be scored? No one cares. Our final pick, Corner Office 2024, is the Florida Gators to win.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, you can look at that bracket over and over again. I'll tell you one thing, it will not be right come March.
No.
But it is fun to workshop some stuff like this, and we always have fun doing an app like this. So I'm excited to get it out there. And thank you guys again so much for listening, and hope that you are all watching these games because this is literally the best time of year for basketball.
And keep a lookout. We're going to update you. We'll be back after the first round games. We'll probably be back after the second round games to just like admit how wrong we were about it.
Yeah, an admittance of guilt, a little bit of that.
For sure. But until next time, thank you for listening. This has been The Corner Office. I'm Jack Byrne.
And I'm Alex Menders. Wall Street. Very fundamental.
Oh, yeah.